the National Tenants Union of Ghana and the head of PR and senior rent officer for the Rent Control Department. We'll be right back.
Bronye, Kporsu Agri Limited, ebro die mu ode, die mu ohwam, na mo atimi adi no anigye mu. Ewo ufie, ene wonwumam, ewo nkran ha, Kumase, Kporsu, ene takrade. Ye wo packages ahodo ma bronye. Me dofo pa package no, ye ma akukọ broiler baako, layer baako, nkosia crate mienu. Nyama chicken spices aka ho. Ni nyina eye 450 Ghana cedis per. Me dofo pa emo dey. Anasa open akese mu nso a ye wo akukọ bolobo package ne ma ho. Ye no, ye ma nkukọ broilers mienu, layers mienu, nkosia crate mienu. Nyama chicken spices aka ho. Ni nyina 800 Ghana cedis per. Akukọ bolobo. Nkukọ bebre. Eni yeso bebre. Ye no akire no, ye wo don sada package ma. Ye no ye ma musua eni nyumaku ahodo. Ye ma nkukọ broilers miensa, layers miensa, nkosia 3 crates. Ni ama chicken spices aka ho. Ni nyina 1200 Ghana cedis per. We die order sisia na enjoy more. Na sa wo ye adwumaku na wo order ye package mu bia ye free delivery at the brow. Nemum enhyehyɛ kakra wo ho. Kporsu Agri Limited ewo 0558 376127 ana 0241 674268 and afi 020 331 5557. Bronye choose Kporsu Agri Limited. Kporsu Agri Limited. Freshness you can trust.
More than 80% of global trade is carried by sea. Most of the products we consume daily travel through ports, making them a key link in the global supply chain. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority is committed to ensuring the enhancement, resilience and sustainability of port infrastructure and maritime trade. Get to know which vessel is bringing your goods, how much duty you are required to pay, and how quickly you can clear your goods from the ports of Ghana. We ask the relevant questions and elicit responses from the appropriate authorities. We interact with you via our social media platforms and put your queries across to the expert. Iron Port shows this and every Sunday live on Metro TV at 5:30 p.m. Iron Port is proudly brought to you by and powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Iron Port, transparency in doing business and building a nation.
Welcome back to the Homeowner Show. Are you looking for a property to buy or rent? Ewells Realty and Consultancy has got you covered. At Ewells, we offer comprehensive advisory services in mortgage finance, sales, marketing, leasing, and investment. At Ewells, we are here to guide you through all your real estate needs. So please call 050-158-0464. That's 050-158-0464, or email info@ewellsconsult.com. Are you planning for Christmas wedding, birthday parties, end of year parties, surprise parties, etc.? Sophie's Food Bank has got you covered. We cook your delicious meals and finger foods, both local and continental. Please give them a call, 020-579-3951. 020-579-3951. And please remember to join the Homeowner Show on Metro TV every Saturday at 6 p.m. prompt as we bring you all the exciting and educative conversations from the building and construction industry in Ghana and beyond. To sponsor or partner with the Homeowner Show, please call or text 0243-272753. That's 0243-272753. And please be sure to like, comment, share the program to other people at Metro TV Ghana and, of course, Homeowners TV GH. That's at the Homeowners TV GH on YouTube and Facebook Live. All right, before we get into the discussion with my guest today, I'd like you to take a minute and watch these videos to help you with our discussion.
There's something called agent fee. And it's an agent fee, no. Viewing fee. People take as much as 300 cedis, 200 cedis, 250, 150 for viewing fee. Now, now we need a dining one. Or somebody 10% viewing fee, 300 cedis, 10%. What is all this nonsense? Where buy agent won't sit down. Usika any dynamo. Or BS in the dino, or time phone. I'll be trying to picture KK. I in the video, not be posted to TikTok. So we're agent. I buy say we Juma, then I'm fan kay 9 go swim. Open die or Accra Hasi. There's something called agent fee. And it's an agent fee, no. Viewing fee.
Praise the sorry penny. Motion praise the sorry penny or ye praise the sorry penny pa. Papa we ni yeso mama me body manji. Nti omo si me ntu. Makwenya dom fa me sika mama omo amfa mama. Omo so omo beti toilet 1,000 for 6 months. But omo current control. The paper bro mama to paper na chine so omo current control. Na fe the Friday omo di sika ne bre me. Say afi do omo enya ntintimi pack. That dey omo di sika ne ma.
All right, thanks for tuning in. You've just been watching a video where a rent seeker is crying out loud. So our topic today is exorbitant rent advances. Rent seekers cry loud. And so there are calls for scrapping of the rent control. So I want to introduce you to my wonderful guest today. Sitting right next to me, we have Mr. Frederick Opoku. You are welcome. He is the Secretary General from the National Tenants Union of Ghana. And before I let him say hello, today is his birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Opoku. Thank you so much for deciding to spend your birthday here with us. So a big happy birthday to him from myself and the homeowners team. You're welcome. We're glad to have you here. Thank you. And then to my far left, we have Mr. Emmanuel Hovey Kporsu. He is the head of PR and the senior rent officer for Rent Control Department. You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Hanna.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. And cheers to your viewers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. But before we do, I'd like you to briefly tell us a little bit about what your role is and what the National Tenants Union of Ghana is supposed to be doing in the rental housing sector.
Okay, so first and foremost, let me say a very big thank you to the team, yourself, and all those who brought us here today. I think it is always a privilege and honor and opportunity to be here to, as you have been doing over the years, to let people know what we represent and the direction that we are going and why there's a need for people to be part of what we do. Certainly, I would say the National Tenants Union of Ghana is a non-governmental, right?
Right.
An advocacy group. We do three things. We educate people about their rights concerning housing and other matters. We inform, and as well we influence. Influence here means that we try to see where the policy direction of the housing is going. We're trying to dialogue. We believe in dialogue. meeting the ministries, the rent control, and all those who matter, and have what the will that, you know, to make the housing issues happen. So at that point, talking about what do you call it, influencing, it enables us to impact decision making. And you know, if you look at the rent law here and there, we have called over the years for the review of the rent law, because it came into being 1963, Act 220, under our first Republican president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And up to date, we have not seen any major review. There was a review in 1986 under PNDC Law 138, and it is not still working, because the population, the migration, and the changing of everything has not made it impossible for modernity to apply. So we have called on many occasions that it should be reviewed. So certainly, I would say the Tenant Union of Ghana is an advocacy group. We represent the voice of more than 11 to 15 million Ghanaians. Wow. Because clearly, Hanna, if you put it into perspective, you understand that if you pick, let's say 10 people in this country, 9 are renting. So I'm talking about 90% of Ghanaians are tenants. Yeah. Even if you are not a tenant, as in residential tenant, you are still renting, because no matter what mansion you have put over anywhere, your office, is it yours? The macula and all the shops and the stores, is it yours? It's the same law that regulates the residential accommodation. It's the same law that also regulates it. Yes, there's no different law that regulates a commercial tenancy. Wow. It's the same law. So you understand that people are dying, people are suffering, people are may have to wind up their businesses because rent is killing them. Yeah. And we thought that something ought to be done. But we hope, we are advocating, hoping and thinking that there will be a change. But let me be very quick here to thank the President of the Republic of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama. I think we paid a courtesy call on him on Wednesday. And we wrote to him, we want to meet him, congratulate him, and discuss other matters. Because if you care to know, before the elections, we had the opportunity to meet His Excellency. And he assured us so many things. But we are happy to say, so far so good, in terms of reviewing the law. Because that has been our main issue, that the law ought to be reviewed. But I can speak on authority that we have been part of the stakeholders meeting that was organized about some weeks ago. The final stakeholders meeting that is going to see the review of the rent law. And I don't have any doubt at all, because President Mahama said that that's the first thing that he would do to show his commitment to housing. Right. And now he's on top doing that. So we are grateful to see that action in that direction.
So just to clarify for our viewers, so this is a non-governmental body,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The National Tenants Union of Ghana. So who started it and when did it start?
These are young people who believe that there's an issue in housing.
Okay.
We mooted the idea, and it wasn't one man's concern.
Okay.
It concerned everybody.
So you have a lot of people that came together collaboratively and started this. When did it start?
Let's say it was registered in 2017 officially. So
8 years it's been around.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've been advocating before formally getting registered. We do a lot of advocacy. So I can say a decade now. Okay. We've been a system trying to affect policy direction and making sure that the law works for all, that the rent law becomes something that everybody, to be fair and apply to all. That's our issue.
Okay.
But we think we are getting there.
Okay, great.
In the direction of the new policy.
So this is a non-governmental agency, and the purpose of it is to advocate, to be a voice for all tenants.
Yes.
So it is to educate, inform, and influence.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. 3.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Mr. Kporsu. So please give us a brief outline of what the Rent Control Department is. What is the purpose of it, and your role in the department?
Okay, thanks so much. Let me take the opportunity to wish my brother a happy birthday.
Thank you, Mr. Kporsu.
You know, we were established by law.
Right.
That is the Act 220. That is the Rent Act 1963. And under Section 5 of that Act, it has spelled out our functions vis-a-vis the rent officer and then the Rent Control Department. The first on the list is we've been given the mandate to conduct what we call an assessment. Assessment is where we've been given the mandate to determine how much rent should be charged on a property upon an application by a tenant or a landlord. Upon an application. So we cannot just wake up and go into town and say we are assessing every rented property in Ghana. Second on the list is we do investigation and determination. Any dispute between landlords and tenants, we do investigation and determine based on the law what should be the right thing to be done between the two of them. Third on the list is we've been mandated to keep what we call register of vacant premises. What that means is that if a landlord has any vacant premises and he wants to be advertised, he has options. He can contract any agent, just as the footage being. Agents are relevant. They come in between landlords and tenants. But it's the landlord who will determine whether I will pass on my property to that agent to bring somebody to come and dwell in, or you have an option to come to the rent control department, give us all the particulars, we'll put it in our database, so that the prospective tenant, that's tenants roaming about, if they also come into our domain, we will then call the two of you and link you up to go and then verify and then you negotiate. Okay. We also have what we call an abscondant process. That means if somebody come and dwell in your property and the person's run away, in our local terms, abscond, you don't have right to go in there and pack the person's things out. It will be an offense. So you then need to report to us. We have a process, what you call the abscondant process, where we'll pass through the legal means and then have your property emptied for you. So these are some of the functions spelled out under Section 5 of the Rent Act.
Okay, so the Rent Act. So the first thing you mentioned was the assessment.
Yeah.
So that means that we viewers, we have a responsibility to make sure that we submit an application to the rent control department so that they can then determine what the right fee is to be charged for that apartment. Okay, so that's our responsibility. The next thing is that they determine I guess justice between the landlord and the tenant. So then then I ask this question: are you the voice for the landlord or for the tenant? We
are the voices of both landlords and tenants and anybody interested in that property. What that means is that if I'm an uncle to a person, the person probably cannot, I can, because I pay the rent for the person, I'm interested in that property. So both landlords, tenants, and anybody interested in that property.
Okay, so you are sort of the mediator between the landlord and the tenant. And then also tenants, no landlord has the right to touch your items or pack your stuff. So you must report it to the rent control department. All right, so then my question then is, people are complaining about the exorbitant rent fees. Okay. So once they submit the application, so do you get applications submitted to you about the rent?
We
So
do. But
walk us through the process of how you determine what the right fee is.
Okay, so when you look at the Section 10, we talks about the applications. And then Section 13, we talks about the factors to use in determining. So Section 14 of the Rent Act is that matters to be taken into account in assessing recoverable rent. Recoverable rent is the normal rent we pay. Because you can recover it frequently, that's why it's termed recoverable. But when you invest in your property, you need to recover your investment. And it's through the rent that you can recover your investment. The first on the list is the rentable value of the property. So if you know the value of the property, then you can spread it that within 20 years or 30 years, I want to recover.
How do you determine the value? Sorry.
So you buy your property, or when you were building, you have the receipt of everything. So at the end of the day, you know the value of the property.
Okay.
So if you want to rent it out, it's not an upright rent. You need to spread it. You need to know the lifespan of your property. So you spread it up, and then that's the rentable value of the property. The second is the value of the land on which you build the property. So these are factors to take into consideration. The third is the amount of the what we call the annual rent. Okay, the annual rent that the assembly stakes. Okay. And then the rentable value of, if there's been a similar property which has been assessed, you can look at some of the features that were used, and then you can also use that for. And then the estimated cost of repairs and maintenance. Because just as I said, if it's 30 years, you don't expect that all the fittings and features will last that long. Definitely, as time goes on, you'll be making changes of those features. So you need to take into consideration all those factors.
So there's a formula to determine what the rent
So
should
the law
be.
has prescribed the factors to consider.
Okay.
It's not that I will go and look at the property and say, no, this is, or you build a property, you have a similar property adjacent to you. Then you say, oh, my brother is taking 1,000 cedis. So because I build it new, let me charge 1,500. No, all these things must come into play. And then there's a current rate of interest charged by commercial bank, the obligation of landlords, tenants, and any other person. The last one means that if the property is given to a tenant and you off the responsibility to the tenant that you maintain the property, then you have to take effect in the rent that the person is paying. What that means again is that the rent cannot just be determined. The landlord has its rights and responsibilities. The tenant has its rights and responsibilities. So if the landlord is now offloading its responsibility onto the tenant, then he has to reflect on the rent that the tenant will be paying. So these are the things we use.
Okay, so this is what you use to determine what the rent should be.
Exactly.
So I think the exorbitant rent fees that people are complaining about is really coming from the advance rent that they have to pay as well.
Okay.
So I believe according to the Rent Act, it's supposed to be 6 months, not more than 6 months advance rent.
Yeah,
so let me just outline some of the complaints, and then I'd like both of you to address them. Okay. Because when this topic came up, we had a lot of questions, a lot of feedback. One of the things is, why are people being charged 1 year, 2 years upfront in rent when the Rent Act says something different? Okay. Secondly, why is it that landlords can just wake up and increase the rent without notice? And then what is the cap? What is the ceiling per year for them to be able to increase that? And then the other, well, let's address those two things first. I'll have you touch on that, and then we will talk to you about that as well.
Okay, so the law talks about all that you've mentioned. It's lack of knowledge. And what the Bible says, lack of knowledge, my people perish. Okay, we are trying. We know it's our responsibility to advocate, to sensitize, and to educate the people. So we are trying. But what the law talked about rent advance, when you get to section 25 of the Act, it has categorized two kinds of advance payment. We have short tenancy and long tenancy. Currently, what we have in the law is that if it's a short tenancy, the landlord has no right to demand more than 1 month rent advance. If it's a short tenancy.
What do you mean?
That short tenancy is a tenancy that does not go beyond 6 months. Okay. If it goes beyond 6 months, the law considers it as long-term tenancy. And that aspect, the law specifies that the landlord has no right to demand more than 6 months rent advance.
Okay.
As we start educating people, we've seen that there's a lacuna, there's a gap in the law. What that means is that the law forbids landlord from collecting. The law forbids landlord from demanding more than 6 months rent advance if it's a long-term tenancy.
Okay.
The underlying word there is demand.
Right.
And because it's a law, nothing has been specified that the landlord cannot receive or take more than 6 months rent advance. So that's where the gap is. And that a lot of landlords are bypassing this and charging people more than that. We've been hearing of all those cases. But the rule of the game at the court is evidence. Because the landlord has not been forbidden from receiving. If you come before any rent officer and you cannot prove that when I went, it's the landlord who demanded it, then it will be very difficult for us as part of our investigation to lay the landlord before the magistrate for any punishment to be done. So what we want to use to cure this is that my brother mentioned the review of the law. We want to cap it that if you receive or you demand more than the required amount or the required period, both will be liable before the law. As we speak now, the tenant can decide to pay 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. Nothing forbids the tenant from paying, and nothing forbids the landlord from receiving. The only restriction in the law is that the landlord should not demand more than 6 months rent advance if it's a long-term tenancy, or more than 1 month rent if it's a short-term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
That's what we want to cure through the review of the law.
I mean, in my interpretation, I would think when a landlord demands, the evidence is the tenancy agreement.
Exactly.
But please do enlighten us, Mr. Opoku, because, you know, there has been a call to scrap the rent control department because there is this belief that they are not following the Rent Act. But it seems like he knows the Rent Act, he's outlined it, so please enlighten us on why you and other tenants feel that this department should be scrapped entirely and that they are not focusing on advocating for tenants.
Thank you very much, Hanna. I think that, yes, it is true that over the years, the National Tenant Union of Ghana has number at that time called for rent control to be scrapped based on the fact that, looking at the mandate on the rent control, as he rightly mentioned, one area that I believe and others also believe is that there must be an enforcement of the law.
Right. Now,
the baseline is about enforcement. So what is the purpose of rent control? Rent control's mandate is to enforce the law. So if the law cannot be enforced, then what is the relevance of the institution?
Right.
Now, I believe, and also my people and all tenants in Ghana also believe, that rent control has an issue. But I'm praying, and we are praying, and we have also engaged even the president in a recent meeting, that one area that I believe has been the problem is because of the fact that, according to Section 2 of the rent law, there should be a rent commissioner. The rent commissioner is the main man who is in charge and who must be responsible in carrying out the enforcement of the law. And since Kwame Nkrumah's time, there has never been a rent commissioner appointed in Ghana. So it's about commitment of government to also consider that if you really mean business, there's the need for government to also appoint a head, let's say a political head, who can report direct to the sector minister and maybe to even the president. Then he can also work and bring some architects to get the resources that rent control needs. In fact, rent control as an institution over the years, we can allude to the fact that they are ill-resourced. You know, unfortunately.
Who funds that department?
It's a department under the Ministry of Housing. So rent control as an institution is under-resourced. They don't have what it takes, you know, to do what is expected of them. So sometimes it's become very difficult also, let me be very frank, when you keep on chastising, criticizing them, you know, critiquing their work. Meanwhile, I myself also is aware that rent control doesn't have the resources to work. Sometimes we ought to be honest as countrymen and women, not to be doing blame game all the time. But I pray and I'm hoping, having heard about the policy direction of the new government, the new sector minister, Honorable Kenneth Ajay, we have met him number with that time. Even yesterday, I met him, and we also met. We went to the seat of government. As I said on Wednesday, we placed this matter before, and I can tell you for sure that the president should be interested, and he is interested, of finding solution to possibly, if they need be, getting a commissioner. Okay. And that would be a solution based, because the commissioner will ensure that it is enforced.
Let's talk about enforcement, because when we brought this topic up, a lot of people wanted to find out, how do you enforce it? Because today, for example, as Mr. Kporsu mentioned, if the tenancy is for 1 year,
Yes.
you are not to demand more than 6
Yes.
months. So what will a tenant do? Will they bring you the tenancy agreement and show you that the demand is for 12 months? Is that what we consider demand, or
You
what
see-
do we consider
you
demand?
see-
We need to make it very clear to
You
our
see,
viewers.
Hanna.
Yes, sir.
I keep on challenging the rent control department of Ghana
Right.
that unless you have a hardcore evidence,
What is hardcore
the
evidence?
truth is that, Hannah, it will be very difficult in this country, okay,
Yes.
to say that landlord wouldn't demand money, and you from your own will, that landlord, I want to pay 3 years, I want to pay 2 years. Now, the cases that always come to us as a union, as an association, I can tell you for sure, it's always about demand.
Right. So let's just take it from there.
Yes.
The landlord has demanded 1 year upfront based on the tenancy agreement.
Yes.
They take it to the rent control department. Mr. Posu, what are your steps? Or they bring it to national tenants. What do you do?
Mr. Posi is saying that, if you heard him, that unless you have an evidence.
That is the evidence.
Yes, so the evidence of, no, they really, what they are trying to say is that you had a hardcore evidence to prove. For example,
That is
maybe
the
you come to
evidence.
me, Hannah, you come
Yes.
to me, or you're a landlady, I come to you that I want your premises, right? I
Right.
want your room or whatever. And you say that you need 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have to record you.
Okay.
Okay?
Let's
Look at
say
me.
you did that.
I have to record you.
Right.
Now you are not my tenant. You are not my landlady.
Mm-hmm.
You are just a prospective, a potential tenant,
Right.
and a potential landlord. Then what they are telling us now is that the tenant now has a responsibility, okay, to now be able to educate the public
Right.
that the only way the rent control can enforce the law today is for you that if you go to any landlady or landlord, kindly record the landlady. Then
Viewers?
after getting the record,
Yes.
put it here. Know the name of the landlord, okay, the
Right.
area, the house number, video, and find ways and means to video or record
Right.
the landlady. Bring it to us as tenant union.
Yes.
The tenant union will now lead you that you force rent control to act.
Yes. And
Because-
what will rent control do?
First of all, the law is very clear that anyone who demands rent exceeding 6 months will have to be in prison and
Okay.
pay 25 penalty units, something like that.
Perfect.
Therefore, we need to ensure that we as tenant union have a responsibility today.
Yes.
In fact, our president, John Dramani Mahama, also even alluded that it's like a connivance between the landlord and the tenant. The president, our father, even was very clear. It means that the union and association, in fact, has a responsibility to make sure that we
Absolutely.
encourage tenants. If you go and meet any landlord or landlady, kindly recall the landlady,
Right.
because she or he is not your landlady or your tenant, your landlord,
Right.
and she cannot do you anything.
Right.
But for us to get some kind of scapegoats,
Right.
begin recording them, bring it to and call the tenant union. We will even lead you, and we will, because we do solidarity.
Right.
We will take you to the rent control. That these are the hardcore evidence. This is
Fantastic.
where the landlord lives.
Yes.
The landlord lives, and today I am begging and pleading to all tenants. Rent control always says that bring evidence. If not, it's a game of evidence, and we are going to force
Yes.
into under their throats to ensure that if not that then if the tenant union doesn't have relevance, honestly, if we can't do that, then we don't have any relevance. Our relevance is to ensure that those that we are saying we represent, we should, as a matter of fact, now we are advancing in the year 2026. We are putting our things in place to ensure that landlords will be recorded, and we will see a lot of landlords being lined up across the country, and that we will see them being jailed, going to prison, and the landlord should understand that the system is going to work. But for me, as Hanna said, sometimes I have been critiquing the rent control and even going to the extent of calling for it to be scrapped. But having seen the direction of the new government under John Dramani Mahama, I can tell you for sure
Let's get a
that
rent
the president
commissioner.
is really
Yep.
working hard to ensuring that he will be able to fix any issues, especially the rent law has not received the final stakeholders engagement meeting. Now it will be going to cabinet, God willing, next month of January. And I'm hoping and I believe my president, your president, our president, John Dramani Mahama, who says and he does, will ensure that that law or that proposal
Right.
will not even spend 1 week on the table of cabinet. and President Mahama will execute it. I trust it.
Viewers, you've heard it right here. Mr. Opoku is telling you, he's pleading with you, get the evidence ready. Record that potential landlord. Bring the recording to the National Tenants Union of Ghana. They will work with you to take it to the Rent Control Department. And Rent Control Department, once they have the evidence, they will enforce it, and that landlord will be jailed. Those are the consequences for doing anything illegal and for not representing the law correctly. Yes. So viewers, you've heard it right here tonight. I'm going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have some more in-depth discussions with my guests tonight. From finding your dream home to building a legacy for your family, the Homeowner Show has been your trusted guide.
How sure are you what you're getting is the right land? And it has to do with searches, land commission, checking social planning authority, checking everything to make sure that what you are buying is not a problem or a challenge prone transaction.
The stress of even not owning a house and constantly coughing up to rent is a big issue.
Join me, Hanna Atiase, and my distinguished panelists as we delve into exciting conversations. Season 3 of the Homeowner Show, every Saturday at 6 p.m., only on Metro TV. Don't just own a house, build a legacy for your family.
The rent for no reason.
Emilia Boche has been searching for a single room for the past 3 months, but every time it ended the same way. Pay 2 years rent up front or keep searching. She earns just 700 Ghana cedis a month, money she used to make working as a supermarket attendant. At that rate, saving even 1 year's rent felt impossible.
From 1,000 to 1,005 was 1 year, and then
Emilia searched and pleaded with several landlords to accept just a 1 year advance. But even that wasn't enough. She was still priced out. She was hoping to get a modest space for 450 Ghana cedis a month. But landlords she contacted were asking for between 800 Ghana cedis and 1,000 Ghana cedis a month, and for 2 years upfront. It felt like finding a pin in a haystack.
almost 2 to 3 months because the rent was so high, and then most of the landlords were demanding for 2 years. But my job, I can't pay for 2 years. For 1 year, cry is something.
So she stopped searching and started building a kiosk from scratch on a land she rented because it was her only option.
I decided to do it on my own. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 8,000 and above.
Even now, she pays monthly just to stay on the land her kiosk sits on at Medina.
I decided to rent a kiosk. So excluding the land is almost 7,000. So when you add the land to it, 800 and above, 8,000 and above, sorry.
Oh, okay, trying to put the whole structure together.
Yes, 8,000 and above. Where I was staying in a kiosk like this one, but I was renting it.
Okay.
So I decided to look for a normal building to stay in, but I searched and searched and searched. I couldn't get. So that's why I made up plans. I'll still use the kiosk.
So would you say that rent in Ghana is very expensive?
Very expensive, very, very expensive.
The rent law makes it illegal for landlords to demand more than 6 months' rent in advance. Landlords who do so can be fined up to 500 penalty units, jailed for up to 2 years, or both. Yet in practice, many tenants are asked for 2 years, some even more. The law exists, but for most people, its protection is only on paper. Emilia used to teach. She left her job because the cost of transport from a new place swallowed her pay. Now she's hoping to return to school, but for now, the kiosk is all she can afford.
And then I have plans, so I have to rent the kiosk, use the kiosk for now, and then after some times I'll try and then move in another place.
Every day, more Ghanaians are being priced out of a place to lay their heads, not because they do not work hard, but because landlords are breaking the law and getting away with it. Until the law is enforced and rent demands reflect real wages, decent shelter will remain out of reach for Emilia and for thousands like her. Jacqueline and Suma Yepua for Joy.
Thank you so much to Joy News Report for that video documenting a young lady who's looking for a place to stay and her journey with that. I want to ask my guests a few questions. Before I do, let me give you the WhatsApp number for all your questions. Please text 0243 272 753. Again, that number is 024 327 2753. Please send your questions so I can ask our guests today. Quickly, you know, a lot of the diaspora brothers and sisters, they are incredibly turned off by the exorbitant rent, paying 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, because, you know, they're used to monthly rental fees. So what happens in the case that now you're living with a landlord, the landlord takes the rent up unexpectedly, you refuse to pay that rent, and now the landlord decides to take away your passport, which is what some of them expressed. The landlords are taking their passports, their documents away from them. What do they need to do at that time? Rent control or National Tenants Union?
Okay. So I have problem with this. I initially said we are the voices of both landlords and tenants, but there are certain things that are real. You see the kiosk that the lady built herself. She mentioned a total of 8,000 cedis, just that common thing. So can you imagine somebody who has used cement block to build a property? And if you do a small calculation, let's assume he rented the place for 2 years, the land, and he has cost her 7,000, making a total of 8,000. A monthly rent is over 300 Ghana cedis. That kiosk. So what do you call exorbitant? But let me come to your question. You know, before you rent somebody's property, there should be this tenancy agreement. You sign an agreement, you know your income before renting the place. You've ventured into it, you've paid your initial rent advance. Subsequently, maybe your business is not working. You keep on begging the landlord to give you time. You've extended it for 6 months. Now you are owing the landlord. What guarantee can the landlord take from you that you assure the landlord or the landlady that you pay your money? The only document that you can assure, if you have any property, you can do. But if you don't have any property, what else? You need to give a document or sign under the undertaking, maybe before a rent officer or before the police. So it's not only the passport. There are a lot of diaspora people who are also giving their valuable as a guarantee that in 2 months' time or in a month's time, I'll pay you my money and leave. Because a landlord has invested, you have come to enjoy it, you need to pay. If you don't have the money, what guarantee can you give the landlord that I will pay? So it's not only about the passport. The passport will guarantee that you will not run away because you are not a native of the country. Otherwise, when your time reaches and you know you cannot pay anymore, vacate from the place.
Okay, let me explain my scenario well. The scenario is that the tenant has paid 1 year upfront.
Okay.
You're coming close to the end of the year.
Yes.
Now the landlord takes the rent up. So let's say they were paying 1,000 cedis a month. The landlord says now you have to pay 2,000 cedis a month because of inflation. It's gone out because a lot of landlords peg the rent with the dollar, which they're not supposed to. But now the landlord tells you have to pay 2,000 cedis a month. The diaspora member says no, I'm not going to pay 2,000 cedis a month. It's too high. Take it up maybe a little bit, but not 2,000. The diaspora person goes out shopping, they come back, the landlord has entered the place and seized their passport and seized their documents. This is a comment that came in that happened to someone, and they said when they went out and came back, the landlord had seized their documents. My question to you is, if somebody comes to the tenant union today and says the landlord has seized my passport and documents, what are the steps?
Hanna, illegality is illegality. That's my word. That is why I keep on blaming rent control. I don't blame them because I said that it lacks
resources.
A leader who is supposed to take charge to enforcement of the law. Please, the rent commissioner is not available. Okay? Now, let me be very frank with you. The law prescribes that before you can even increase your rent to even 1 pesewa, there should be an assessment and the reason why you are doing that. It's a simple law.
Very simple.
And the rent control, Mr. Kporsu even alluded that yes, you cannot sit down anyhow and just arbitrarily sleep every morning and say that I have increased my rent because I want to increase it. Now, Mr. Kporsu somehow, some way is justifying to some extent, and even trying to tell us that looking at the kiosk that somebody built of 7,000, look at the position of Mr. Kporsu, and that because the person built 7,000, he's now juxtaposing that thing to what he's saying, and I beg to differ. Look, whether you use billions of dollars to build it, the law is the law. The law says before you can make an increment of 1 pesewa, you need to go through the rent control system. The rent control will come and do an assessment and should understand what is the reason behind your increment. 1, the location of where you build the tent, the maintenance level, how you do it, economic situation can be an issue. You put, I'm coming.
Anna.
Can you let me talk interjection?
No, I beg you. I beg you.
Let him finish the sentence and then you can come in.
Because, no, you're distorting me.
Yes.
No, you have to control the system because I'm on the floor. No. Why don't you wait?
Let him finish
the
sentence.
Anna, we are educating the public.
Look, if you think you're not comfortable, okay, allow me to make all my...
Let him finish the sentence.
Listen to me.
It shouldn't mislead the public.
You will come in and you can correct what you felt.
I am saying that, and let me reiterate once more, if he didn't hear me. I am saying that the law says nobody, no landlord has any right whatsoever under the law to sit and increase anything.
Without an assessment.
Anna, let him quote that law. Let him quote that law to educate the public.
The law states
we are educating the public. It should
look, there are
quote the law.
Quote the law. Quote the law. Look, there are grounds. It's a reference book, so you can't force you to quote it. Look, there are grounds. Are there not grounds for which landlords should increase rent? Yes. One of the grounds are, 1, before you can even charge a new rent, 1, we look at certain factors. Have you done any maintenance? You must give reason. Okay. And the rent control should be responsible to ensuring that indeed you did that increment. No, 99% of tenants, landlords, increase their rents without any addition.
Without any cost, okay.
Are you okay? Now ask, if they bring the matter to rent control, is rent control able to do proper and be fair and say that, on what ground did you do it? Or they will just sit down and say, okay, because you have brought the case, we are settling disputes. Now, rent control has been relegated to solving only disputes, which is 1/10 of their responsibility by the law. Therefore, if sometimes some of us are quick to say that institution and the way they are governing it is not the way it ought to be governed, because we have a law that the rent control is not ready to enforce the law. Okay. My point is, Ghana, it's about the law. Unless you tell me that if I'm able to quote a section, but I'm telling that there are grounds for which you can increase.
All right.
Is it true or it's not true?
Thank you very much.
If it's not true,
so let me come to Mr. Kporsu. The question was the viewer who had the passport and items seized when the landlord went in there. Please go ahead and respond to his, and then I'll come to the viewers' questions, okay?
Yeah, so I was expecting him to quote that law that mandates or that specify that before you increase rent, you have to come to rent control.
Can I answer you?
But rent control, is there a cap in terms of increasing the rent in the Rent Act?
Hanna,
yes, sir. Please
what
clarify
we have
that.
in the law is that only when there's a dispute that you don't agree with the rent that the landlord has proposed, then you, the tenant, can file or apply for the recoverable rent, the assessment of the recoverable rent. There is no law that when you finish building, you have to submit your building to an assessment for us to make a determination of the rent before you rent it up. The law is open that I've finished building, you come and negotiate with you. You pay your initial rent advance.
Right.
If it comes to increment and you propose from 1,000 to 2,000, and I don't understand, the tenant then apply to the rent control to come and assess the place and make a realistic recoverable rent, so that both parties will be mandated to take.
Okay.
So there is
rent
no
control
law.
will come and make an assessment to determine whether the increment is valid or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
After an application.
Okay.
But not that after building, then you have to submit yourself. So that's why there is no law.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think he was talking about the increment.
Let me address your issue.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay.
Let him finish the sentence. Yes.
So the process or the procedure is that you go before a landlord for a period of staying, 1 year, 2 years. Getting to the end of your tenancy, the landlord and the tenant will meet. And the landlord will tell the tenant that I will be renewing it at this price. Or the tenant will tell, I'll be vacating. That's where the negotiation starts. So before the end of your first tenancy, you know your stand, whether you'll be staying there or you'll be vacating. Just as I said, when you move in and you start negotiating, the landlord will propose. At that point, if you cannot, at the end of your tenancy, you vacate.
Okay.
Okay? So if you don't vacate, and you enter into a new period, that's where the rent arrears will come in. Landlord cannot seize your passport if you don't owe him or her.
Okay, that's the question. Even if you do owe them, they shouldn't be able to seize it.
And landlord cannot break into your property if you've not given the person access. Even if you are owing the landlord, he has no right to break into your property, which amounts to criminality, unlawful entry. That can be reported to the police, and the police will take the criminal aspect of the case. And the rental aspect will be referred to the rent control. So anybody going through such problem, the first day the landlord enter your property without your consent, you have to report
them
to the
rent
police.
Control or to the police. Get a police
because that
report.
is criminal in effect.
All right, thank you. We have some comments and questions for the viewers. Hello, good evening. My name is Yakubu. Hello, Yakubu. Please, if we really want to solve these rent issues, I think rent agreements and rent fees shouldn't be between only the tenant and the landlord. It will be better if we can make it in a way that if anyone wants to rent out his house, he should first go to rent control department and register. And all the agreement and the fee should be on the document before the tenant even comes in. So that's their comment. Please comment quickly before I move on to the next.
Hanna, you see what this man came about?
Yes.
That is the right thing, and that even the Lord says so.
Yeah.
Trust me, rent control is not trying to admit the fact.
Okay. Let me quickly go to some more questions here. so we can address all of them and then we'll wrap up. Good evening, Madam Host Owusu. Ebenezer from Akiem Abuakwa. I hope I got that right. Please, which is the rent control in Ghana not being supported by government to do its job well? Okay, that's a comment there. Good evening, I'm Kojo from Ashamine. Does the rent control have district offices? Do they meet and train or advise landlords on how to treat tenants? After your rent expiration, how long can I stay in my rented apartment before moving out? I think that should be outlined in the tenancy agreement, isn't it? Does a landlord have the right to threaten tenants of eviction just because payment delayed for a month? All right. I'm Serena in Dansuman, Sahara. I don't think there's any hope for us as tenants. Oh, Serena, because we don't see anything useful from the rent control. Oh, a landlord asked a friend if rent control built the house for him. What power does the rent control have? Okay, 1 minute to please answer those questions, rent control, and then National Tenants Union, and then we will be wrapping up for tonight.
Okay, so
we may have to invite you back to continue the conversation.
Okay, so we are here to educate.
Yes.
The first issue about registry properties, currently it's not in our law.
Okay.
If all of us want this to be done, we have to factor into the law.
Okay.
Secondly, we have several offices along the 16 regions. Though we are not in every district, we have offices that are taking care of adjacent offices. So in case you need any help, any police station you go and ask of rent control, the office in that district or adjacent will show you. There is no grace period after your tenancy has expired. Just as I mentioned, before the end of your tenancy, you should start negotiating with the landlord so that if you cannot stay there any longer, you move out at the end of your tenancy. It shouldn't be that at the end of your tenancy, you start begging the landlord to give you a grace period. Some people have the notion that after the end of my tenancy, I should be given 3 months, and that 3 months must also be free. There's nothing in our laws.
Okay.
The law prescribes, as we have it now, that no landlord, no tenant has right to owe any landlord a month's rent. If you owe any landlord a month's rent, it commits an offense. The landlord can stand on this, apply for recoverable of possession. So based on your questions, these are the quick answers I want to give to your viewers.
Okay, great. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank my guests for being here. Please, you have 30 seconds. I'll start with the birthday gentleman. Mr. Opoku, give us in 30 seconds your advice as an advocate for tenants, and then Mr. Kporsu as well.
I'm just praying, and I'm just praying that one, the enforcement aspect of the law should be taken seriously, and I pray that there's going to be a rent tax force established under the new law, that in every district at least let's have 200 or so rent tax force to enter there and ensure that they are complying with the rules of the game.
Thank you very much.
So we are asking that there must be rent tax force.
There must be rent tax task force.
For compliance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Anna. There is hope. I'm sorry for
Serena.
Serena, that there is no hope. There is very hope. What we are proposing in our bill is that there is going to be an independent assessment committee where tenant union will be involved, landlord will be involved, surveyor or lawyers will be involved. They will sit and determine the rent that will be paid by the tenant. So there is hope for tenants.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you very much to my guests this evening. Thank you so much for being here and educating the public. And I'd like to say, Serena, as he mentioned, there is hope. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I'll see you on Saturday at 6 p.m.